This episode was made possible by our generous supporters on Patreon. Welcome to our new patron this month, Vesper.mp3 of the Roll History Podcast. Thank you very much.
Trigger on!
Welcome to Roll to the Duckface Diaries. We are a World Trigger read-through podcast aiming to discuss the World Trigger manga, volume by volume. I'm Wensleydale Cheddar.
And I'm Hoven with an H, and this time we're tackling volume 27 of World Trigger that covers chapters 232 to 238.
That's right. How are you doing on this fine day?
I am in a vortex known as Baldur's Gate 3 that will set me free. Reese's Puffs. Eat 'em up, you know.
I'm here to give you some customer service.
Thanks. D&D 5th edition, it already sucks up so much of my attention, and now it's like, what if D&D 5th edition, but you have, 7 characters to manage?
It's going to be interesting. So last recording, I believe, was just me yapping about the Chimera Ant arc.
Then before that, it was me yapping about Zelda, Tears of the Kingdom.
And now it's going to be you yapping about Baldur's Gate. I don't really have anything to yap about. I've had a busy couple of months editing the last 2 Podcast Mon Adventures, which, by the way, check out Podcast Mon Adventures if you haven't. We do a podcast about another long-running manga series that you might want to check out. It's also pretty fun and strategic, although not in the same way that Ashihara is. I've had to edit 2 3-hour recordings in a row, which burned me out quite a bit.
It's time for me to tag in.
With a steel chair.
It's Hoven with a steel chair. Oh, yeah, that reminds me of how in Baldur's Gate 3 I recently had a temp companion who could make corpses into, spore slaves, and one of the things that the spore slave could do was improvise weapons and hit enemies with, not steel chairs, but wooden chairs. They don't have steel chairs in Baldur's Gate, I don't think.
Amazing. I don't know, maybe the gnomes have steel chairs.
Maybe.
Why wouldn't you ask?
They do have artificers, although I don't know if you can choose them as a class, but they are a thing that exists in the lore.
Well, there you are then. So you could technically have a steel chair in Baldur's Gate 3. If you have managed to get a steel chair in Baldur's Gate 3, let us know in the comments, please. I've also realised a bit before this recording, it's my 1-year anniversary since I started HRT. So that's a big milestone. It's also the 1-year anniversary of me looking for a better job and failing has passed.
Aww.
So patreon.com/Wensleydale Cheddar, thoroughly recommended. You can get us to cover the World Trigger anime filler arc. But yeah, ups and downs.
Fund a based podcast host's HRT.
Yes.
Do it.
But yeah, a year of ups and downs, but nowhere near as up as Baldur's Gate 3, I'm afraid.
Well, a few things are.
Well, in any case, we are doing World Trigger Volume 27 today. Story and art, as always, done by Daisuke Ashihara. We assume the translation was done by Caleb Cook, the lettering was done by Ace Christman, and at this point, I think we are going to resign ourselves to the fact that we are going to record these before the Viz volumes come out, so the rest of the credits, we are going to post them in the podcast description.
Yeah, unless it's another case where I just take so bloody long that somehow the localized volume comes out, but we'll see.
Probably. Unlikely, but we'll see. So, shall we get to the synopsis?
Let's do it. The 4th day of the Battle Sims comes to a close, as both the participating teams and the border upper management ponder over the results. Following the grand information exchange of the lower teams, Mizukami's squad are thoroughly dethroned as a top dog on the leaderboard, as well as one of its closest competitors, Ninomiya's team, with Chika's performance worsening as the in-game unit count balloons. Frustration for the latter provisional team's captain builds for Yuzuru over his hands-off approach to giving the Tamakoma sniper any kind of guidance. When they finally butt heads during the night, Emma unearths secrets about Ninomiya's motivation surrounding his former teammates and Yuzuru's old mentor, Hatahara. Are their respective squads' troubled pasts more connected than they realise? What sort of hypothetical new rank wars trials have the squads thought up for one of their assignments? And what new twist to the Sims awaits on day 5? Also, why is double Raygus so damn effective as a tanking strat? Please enough.
You've got to hand it to Raygus because it's finally had its moments after so little utility in previous combat bouts. So yeah, I'll have to give it to it.
You gotta give it to it.
All right, well, this was a good volume, but it's a very painful one to focus on.
Yep.
Firstly, because it already comments well on itself, and secondly, because we've already commented on this arc as a whole a lot. But obviously, the big point of interest in this arc is the Ninomiya Squad drama and the Hatahara flashback.
Yeah, it's a mostly transitional volume with, a lot of just taking point and analysing. But yeah, that particular flashback and the surrounding drama with that provisional squad is by far the standout bit of it. I really love how it connects with Kakizaki's backstory, which has been this background mystery since his introduction that hasn't really been drawn too much attention to, so it's really cool to see it all click into place here.
Wait, do you mean him being a bootlicker to Netsuki, or do you mean Kageura?
Kageura, I gave the wrong one.
Oh, right. Okay. Makes sense.
I feel like part of my synopsis is also wrong. I say, will Emma find out that there is a connection? Whereas I feel like Emma probably already made the connection. It's more we, the readers, find out the connection. Sloppy work from the Hoves.
Hoves, you have been haunted by the sloppy... never mind.
Sloppy note-taking devil.
Sloppy note-taking devil. I guess it's going to be a controversial opinion because the flashback is the standout moment to a lot of people when it's surrounded by a lot of yapping. But in a way, the flashback is just exactly made up of things that we've already kind of pieced together from what Osamu found out in bits and pieces about Ninomiya, Hatahara, Emma's history. I'm a little disappointed since seeing it play out only introduced a few interesting elements. It's still entertaining to play out, but it's got only so few new story elements like Kageura Squad trying to convey the message via becoming a PR team, and that nicely connects to Kageura being demoted.
I think it's more that it's just very nice to have a very character-centric moments in a stretch of chapters where a lot of it is quite analysis-focused.
Yeah, that's true. I guess it was nice to see the shift in Ninomiya's personality and recontextualize how he is the way he is because he puts more blame on himself for Hatahara's escape than anyone else. But Hatahara herself wasn't much to speak of in terms of personality. He wasn't there for most of her chapter, which was quite funny.
Yeah, it's like her and Urashima are sort of these characters who they've been alluded towards for so long. And then when they finally turn up, it's like, okay, they're just another guy.
Yeah. She's not boring. There is clearly something going on there, but it's not featured much, and I kind of wish that maybe this flashback got a bit extended for us to see Hatahara's daily interactions with other agents, apart from just the things we already knew, that Ninomiya's squad got demoted, that Hatahara wasn't allowed on the away mission, that Kageura was demoted because of his behavior. We all knew that, but just a bit more of Hatahara would have been nice, I feel like.
I feel like oftentimes World Trigger is more notable for the emergent characterization from people we already know, rather than finally revealing characters we've not seen as much of.
What is the standout moment of the current characters and the focus on psychological stuff and personality stuff and so on? Emma and Ninomiya's confrontation is an excellent energizer, just like the scruffy hottie play on Kitora was in the last volume. Yes, please, Ashihara, please always give us more characters yelling at each other. It's always great. Though I say yelling at each other when Ninomiya said that he would give Emma a facial expression like he asked.
And it's the exact same expression that he just had.
He wasn't like, he really did give him a single facial expression.
It was interesting. I feel like with Ninomiya in this, I mean, you could chalk it up to Ashihara's general limited range when it comes to facial expressions, but I also got the sense from this volume that Ninomiya is maybe just the kind of person who isn't that good at conveying emotions. When he pleaded with Izumi to teach him more about shooting, it felt very formal, like it was difficult for him to put on the signifiers.
Is Ninomiya another autistic baby?
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm kind of alluding to.
Hell yeah. It's so funny in a way. Speaking of social conventions and not getting them and so on, it's funny seeing this 20-something-year-old destroying a middle schooler with facts and logic. He's more than 10 years old and he's like, hey, child, shouldn't you be more fucking responsible?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like it's going to be a recurring thing of I just compare this to something that will come in the next volume, and then next volume it's like, oh no, I don't have as much to say. But I couldn't help but draw a comparison between the kind of attitude that Ninomiya has towards Chika and Emma to the stuff in the most recent chapter with Inukai and Wakamura.
Hashtag Wakamura trigger.
Hashtag Wakamura Trigger, how in both cases it's trying to encourage the person or wanting the person to take their own initiative, but from very, very different angles. In the case of Chica's, it's taking the initiative to ask for help, because she can be very self-critical in terms of relying on other people and making it more difficult for others. Whereas in Wakamura's case, it's like standing on your own 2 feet and managing to learn with your own initiative.
Yeah, precisely. Also, sorry, Ninomiya is 20 years old exactly, on the dot.
Okay, I was gonna say 27 sounds a bit on the old side for a World Trigger agent character.
Please don't make me feel old. But yeah, I've also noticed that Chica's arc this volume made me think that she's really similar to Hugh's in some ways. After all, they both refrain from asking for help and instead wait for the rescue to arrive, although for very different reasons. For Hugh's, it's pride, and for Chica, it's guilt.
Yes.
I've also noticed that Chica's arcs often play out with Emma as the focus point of view character. I'm enjoying his character turmoil and Ninomiya challenging his perspective as to what's expected of him as an agent, but I do hope that Chika can get her own focus from her perspective in her own right. When it comes to like what Ninomiya said to Emma about him needing to show more initiative to help Chika in his own right if he feels like she needs help, I could see his argument both ways. I do agree that Emma has a big case of tunnel vision and doesn't show much initiative, and it's clear from this that Ninomiya sees something in him that Emma himself can't see. But yeah, again, that is a lot of responsibility to throw on a 14-year-old who isn't even a captain.
I do find it interesting that Ninomiya and Azuma, they have this sort of carrot and stick routine in terms of mentoring Chika. Ninomiya is like, why didn't you do this? And then Azuma is kind of a bit gentler in his approach.
As with the previous volume, it's really fun to see Osama's team basically take command of the pace of the matches, and especially seeing him and Katori cooperate so smoothly.
Yeah, they're very high on their wins, which is quite gratifying to see after they were stumbling at the start.
Also, it's great seeing Osama so casually ruthless against Chika. It's really just funny in a morbid way.
He knows her shortcomings more than many.
One of the funniest panels in this volume is her depressed face after the 10th match. It's so funny.
We had a lot of good depression faces. I mean, like, Taichi has a great one.
Yeah, fucking Taichi.
There's a lot of dwelling on the cumulative stress and depression that the constant losers are facing. You got a nice little moment with Kakizaki as well, where he's mentioning how is just being spec towards combat actually productive or unhelpful in the long run.
You're talking about Kaguya again.
Kaguya.
Yuma had a great feature in the last chapter of this volume, in the formation of Utagawa Squad's Blitz strategy. As the member of the main trio who has been out of the focus for a long time, it's nice to finally give him a bit of a spotlight. It does kind of make the volume feel a bit disjointed. It's not a case of the volume neatly being centered around one theme or one stage of the away mission test, like some of the other volumes.
Yeah, it kind of made me wonder, because I was thinking it seemed like a sure thing that, oh, maybe next volume will be focused on Utagawa's team. But since that chapter is here, it's more up in the air. Another very possible one is Wakamura team, with the most recent chapter for volume 28.
Let's see, how many chapters have come out after this?
7.
Oh, yeah.
So with this one to go on, it could be just the next 7, but, you know, it's been fluctuating numbers, so there might be a little more.
It depends on how many number of pages we've had. So yeah.
Speaking of volume cover analysis, the pattern seems to continue that I don't comment on or don't think much of the previous volume, and then suddenly having the newer one to compare it to gives me much more thoughts on the previous volume's cover. So to go back to what I find interesting about 26, which I don't think I quite gave enough credit last time, it's like Hana and Kikuchihara are both separated from the group in the way that the cover is composed, and Hana is leading the way with her quiet, understated guidance, but, you know, she's a bit further off. And then meanwhile, Shiro is very much at the forefront of things and is very disconnected from the wacky antics of the central trio, which is a nice way to visually showcase their dynamic. And then here in 27, it frames Ninomiya as calmly yet coldly leading his provisional squad forward, studying an eager-looking Chika, sort of showing that she is very game to learn despite whatever setbacks. And then you have Emma watching on with this perturbed look. Then at the back you have just Kagami seeming casually engaged and talkative, and Azuma providing this warm, relaxed presence at the very, very back.
And I do have to note, Kagami was just very difficult to edit out to make this thumbnail, so I hate this cover for that reason. No, I don't hate it. It's actually quite pretty.
One little detail. I don't know so maybe I'm reading too much into it, but giving Katori lead bullet feels like it's almost a connection to their first match. It's like a tactic that was first used in a match where Osamu was using it against her squad, among others, but now she's utilizing it. I don't know.
Yeah, that makes sense. She also adopted Spider from him and Lead Bullet from Chica there. Although I guess she does use it much more like Miwa does. It's so unintentionally funny seeing Emma and Chica despairing inside over the losses, all the while Ninomiya just stares blankly at the screen. In the abridged series, I think we would just play Emma and Chica completely straight there, while Ninomiya would just get distracted and play Candy Crush or something. Great leader. I've been waiting for someone to suggest a twist of swapping around the units, and Oji might have been the best captain to do so. I love his logic of giving Ikoma Abishima's units so that he doesn't let them die. So also Nire teasing Tsuji was very cute.
You know, as always, lots of funny overreactions from Ikoma's end. He is a silly boy. As far as the chapter of the border higher-ups looking through all the answers of what could we enter the B-rank wars, I'd be very interested if the custom Trion soldiers were actually implemented on the away mission as a result of how things go with this test. Because that seems to be the angle they're going with. It's like, okay, let's see if this actually works. It was the specific comment from Kinuta that was interesting to me of, well, I'm loath to complain about a decision that's already been made.
It could also reference the away mission test, like the special battle sims that already include the Trion soldiers, but it also makes sense. If they are practicing with it, then it's all the more likely that Trion soldiers are already going to be implemented in the battles. Maybe with the large-scale away mission, Kido is planning his own large-scale invasion, in fact, so this kind of makes sense. Shinoda's faith in Wakamura gives me pause, but maybe the last few days will reveal something about his hidden feats. But it was very interesting how specifically Shinoda was so, I don't know if defensive is the right word, but he defended Wakamura from being the captain to test Hughes. No, he was made a captain with Border's future in thoughts.
Yeah, what did he mean by this? And it's very interesting if that's some kind of cover-up or if, there's a deeper meaning to that. So it'll be very interesting to see if that's touched on again.
Also, Kido, why are you calling Shinoda Sir? Aren't you higher ranked than him? Is that how you call him in the bedroom or something?
Oh, well.
So the politics of data sharing among the provisional squads have become more interesting this volume, how both Kodera, I guess we're doing that, and Mizukami shared information on each other with weaker squads in the hope of bringing each other down. I also completely forgot about Kodera being sneaky and having his squads only draft the responses for the delegated assignments to submit them later and make the score seem lower than it actually is. He actually managed to outsmart Mizukami, so...
Yeah, no, it's interesting seeing how certain squads like those two will put a lot of weight into the delegated assignments and managing those in a smart way.
Mizukami saving his team's face wouldn't have worked so well as it has if it weren't for him getting the squad to laser focus on 4 specific high-ranking squads, thus securing some wins, plus homework. Homework for the win. You can't beat them without homework, kids. Homework is super important.
Keep on your studies.
Shinoda and Kido comparing Mizukami to Rindo makes me actually want to see Rindo in action. I wonder if maybe he could join the away mission. Probably not, but one could dream.
Kido giving Osamu's ingenuity some credit and how this earns the attention of Shinoda and Jin is a really interesting little beat. It makes you wonder how much of an influence Osamu is having on Kido.
Yeah, no, that's true. He must have impressed him a bit during the negotiations, certainly. So Takatomi becoming systems management senior staff wasn't something I expected. Or at least I blinked and missed it when this 15-year-old became border staff, apparently. I guess that's the power of podcasting.
Don't underestimate it.
So Konichika adopted Oji's nickname for Chika, Amatrishana, for some reason. Just a small note, but I found it notable. I've noticed that in the flashback, just coming back to that, Kageura slugged Netsuki in the exact same way that Jin did with Commander Yuiga in his awful fucking one-shot.
Oh, yeah, it's very similar sort of artwork. The perspective, the expression.
Yeah, the way how it's an uppercut too, yeah.
I did like the eyebrows on Netsuki when he considered Kageura's squad's proposal to become the PR squad. It's a very distinctive facial expression.
Okay. I hope that someone has already made the YouTube video with ultimate top 10 best trigger settings with a clickbaity thumbnail.
Yeah, the clickbaity thumbnail with Taichi overloaded with just all of the triggers under the sun. He's got Rage's set up, but he's less proficient at using it.
It would be interesting seeing Taichi like this IRL. So there was the part of the special assignment of the border staff discussing what kind of alternatives to regular rank wars we could have. And having the operators join the battle is an awesome idea. Fuck the away mission. I want to see the next season of rank wars now. I like this volume foreshadowing Taichi's creativity when it comes to incorporating Tryon soldiers into battles. I'm sure you can appreciate it as a fellow kaiju nerd.
Oh, for sure. It all reminds me, the Custom Trio soldiers, there's a lot of TV shows with this sort of premise. I think Robot Wars is the one people will know the most, but I always recall this BBC equivalent called Bamzuki, where it was like you make these little kind of bugs that fight each other. And I downloaded the game on my laptop and created one of the Zooks.
Brilliant.
In fact, I think in Bamzuki they didn't even just fight each other. It was very World Trigger-like, where they did kind of sports type events with each other as well. It's been a hot minute.
Oh my god, so you literally played the Tryon Soldier Maker Simulator?
Yes, I did.
I like Ashihara congratulating himself on the clean UI design of the Tryon Soldier Maker. Unless one of his assistants did it, who knows? I love that Madoka, the cat girl, designed a cat bot. It's very cute.
Yeah, and it's stuff like the really artsy over sportsy one. What's it? Sayoko? Sadoko?
It's a Sayoko.
Sayoko. Yeah, okay, I wasn't too far off. Yeah, how she suggested the visually distinct units thing.
Exactly, and even more so artsy with Kagami, given what she's going to do next volume, but we'll get to that when we get to that.
Oh, yes. Yeah, no, the sportsy ones could never.
Yeah, fuck you, sportsy ones.
I say this being someone who's always preferred drawing things to exercise.
Yuma not being able to contribute too much on Tryon Soldier designs so as not to seem suspicious. But then Utagawa coming to the rescue was a nice touch, especially since he knows Isami very well, since they were squad mates. Oh my god, they were squad mates.
They were squad mates.
I was surprised that Hana has such a low parallel processing score, but it sort of makes sense because she has been shown to miss things in like the Tamakoman Kakizaki match. So I've got to ask, what do you think of the yada yada goddamn? When they were designing the Tryon soldiers, Katori was making the comparison of overpowered Tryon soldiers to Gundam, but they couldn't say Gundam.
Yada Gundam. Yes, that was very funny.
So it was goddamn.
It sees a cool mech, like goddamn.
I love how some new rank wars ideas mirrored our answers in the last Q&A. Speaking of which...
Yeah, let's head to the Q&A. So, rjolt24 on Reddit asks, what would make for the most interesting sealed environment team? Any agents allowed? Well, since they specified any agents allowed, I kind of bent the rules of how the sealed environment teams worked and included 2 operators on mine. So you've got Miwa, Yuma, Hughes, Hana, and Kusakabe. The reason for this is that you have the 2 agents with the most polarized outlooks on neighbors in Miwa and Hana, then both of the neighbors, but then we also have a composed operator captain that we haven't seen much of yet, and could be an interesting counterbalance to everything else. So I feel like you could get lots of juicy drama and back and forth out of this.
I love how you've basically made the Dr. Oz House of Hatred, where you like had a homophobe and a lesbian live together or something like that.
Yes. What's his name? Dr. Phil.
Dr. Phil? Oh yeah, Dr. Phil, not Dr. Oz. Dr. Oz is someone else.
I think you'll find he's a magical wizard.
No, he's a politician. He's equally shitty.
Okay.
So I would have to go for A ranks mostly, since the B ranks have already been shuffled enough. We've seen enough of them. I need to see a squad with Maki as the operator, first of all. And you know what would be funny? If Yuiga were chosen as a provisional captain. And if like Maki was just berating him all the time, and let's throw Miwa and Kazuma for good measure so that everyone bullies him. And as an outlier, I would throw Satomi in there, who would just be the really cheerful gunner out of nowhere. My second idea is just throwing in Katagiri squad without any changes and just watch them kill each other like in Room 303.
It really is just a game of pitch the best reality TV show setup.
In a way, Katagiri squad already did the sealed environment test, only the sealed environment was cursed.
A haunted castle place, which is also hell.
So, rjolt24 also asks, how long would a Chica Tryon-powered laptop run for? I would say a year and a day.
About as long as it's going to take for us to get to the away mission IRL. Hey, yo!
Hey! And the next question is, what could you imagine a real-world Trigger video game being like? Arjolt gives many examples which are pretty good. Chibi Rank Wars, Spore-like Trine Soldier Creator, or maybe a Tower Defense Protect Mikado City. What do you think?
Spore is another good comparison. That was another game I played a lot and like to fiddle around with the creature creator. They've also got vehicle creators and stuff in there as well. I think a Fire Emblem or Baldur's Gate style tactical RPG would fit very well, particularly something like Fire Emblem, where it's more leaning to the tactics side of things than the RPG side of things, where you have this distinctive unit types and an emphasis on team-based combat. You could work in Jin's prediction as a little mid-level shake-up to anticipate certain powerful enemy attacks and maneuvers at a random point in the battle. Sort of like the Monado flash-forwards in the first Xenoblade Chronicles game.
I mean, you're clearly more of a prolific gamer.
That's not saying much.
I would say, yeah, my suggestion was going to be like a Baldur's Gate turn-based combat thing with heavy focus on map positioning, simulating the rank wars. And yeah, you could easily simulate the invasions and the away mission potentially. Or my other suggestion is a dating sim with Osama as the point of view character.
Aww. Yeah, you have Yuma as one option. You have, I don't know, Katori as another.
Yeah, Katori, Usami, Konami. There's plenty. All right, so let's move on to the next question then.
Crispy Critter 01 on Twitter. Dear Wensleydale and Hoven, hope you're both doing well. I hope I also get to hear your adorable voices again. Oh, thank
you. Stop it. You're adorable. Actually, don't stop, please. Don't stop.
Flattery will get you everywhere. I'm a very big defender of this current arc, as it might be my favourite. My question is, what do you guys think of the overall pros and cons of this arc, and how it does a lot for the story before and after? Lastly, where do you guys think this arc will stand compared to the previous arcs, and whether or not it's your favourite? Thank you.
You're welcome.
So I think we've covered this quite a bit over the last few episodes. Obviously, it's like, I think a big pitfall of this arc is the fact that Ashihara wasn't very good at signposting it, where the story was going. So it came as quite unexpected that we ended up in a very talky, exam-based arc. But yeah, I also really like the way it is fleshing out the ensemble a bit and giving them more life outside of just their confined team units. I think the large-scale invasion and the B-rank wars still pull ahead of it for me, because those are just such well-rounded arcs which do so much. But I put it on a pretty similar level to something like the Galapola arc. Granted, it has completely different strengths and weaknesses. Galapola has a bit more of a racing pace and adds a new wrinkle to the kind of the wider neighbour lore, whereas this does a lot more in terms of, like, interesting character moments.
Yeah, I agree that like the biggest con is probably like setting expectations. Like there was no fanfare to announcing this arc. There was just oh yeah, and we still have the away mission test to go through if you want to make it to the away mission. You didn't really set up the expectations that we are going to focus so much on this, and so, well, I'm a very big defender of this arc as well. I can see why people have been disappointed. I feel like the biggest pro of this arc is just the comedy and the character drama stemming from like mixing up the squads. Everything involving Katori squad has been phenomenal, and it makes me follow those characters even more. Tertiary characters like Mizukami and Teria becoming kind of central figures in Border for a hot minute there. Also just fleshing out the relationship of the organization as a whole to the agents themselves has been great.
I think the very quirky but relaxed sense of humour that Ashihara has is very distinctive to him as an author. It feels like it's its own beast compared to other types of manga and anime. So I think having an arc which really gets to platform that, it's quite rewarding. Or I guess centralise that, rather. But yeah.
When it comes to like the other cons, I think actually this arc should lean more into being a trashy reality show. Like, you're putting these hormonal teens in a sealed environment and most of them still focus on homework. Come on. More of them should take a page of like Katori and Ikoma's book for our entertainment, I feel like. So yeah, as to where I would rank this arc, again, well, I'm a big defender of it. I don't feel like it will ever be my favorite. However, I would definitely rank it over the introduction and Galapola invasion arcs. I think I would put it on par with like the Black Trigger capture arc. arc. It's kind of a similar arc in a way, even though it doesn't focus at all on combat. It kind of just focuses on building the relationships between characters that are not necessarily tied to Osama and Yuma and so on.
Okay. So then over on Reddit, from automatic_web3668, Masters Wensleydale and Hoven.
Ooh.
I come to you asking questions. Number 1, what do you think of Ammo's role could be in the future of the story, and what do you think of the added characterization given to him in this arc? I also believe this is the most he's ever talked in the entire manga, which is pretty funny. So I feel like Ammo will likely only go on the away mission if Ashihara finds some way to work him into the ensemble dynamic. It could be that, like, the idea is, like, oh, he's more of a background character now so that we can flesh out all the B rankers, and once we're on the away mission, we have a good sense of them, so then throw characters like Ammo in to add something new. Or it could just be, he's a backgrounder now because he's not going to do much and he's going to be on reserve to protect the base. What exactly, which characterization are they referring to here? Is it kind of recent commentary, or...?
I have no idea. He has no characterization. In all seriousness, like, his characterization so far hasn't really sold me as a character. To answer your question, I think he did some commentary on the away mission test, but I only vaguely recall it, and it wasn't anything particularly memorable. I think he's most effective as, like, the atomic bomb plot device in the Cold War of sorts within the internal politics of Border. He's also going to be probably the explanation for how Border is not defenseless now that they send a huge amount of agents into space. So yeah, I don't really spare much thought to Armo. Some people might do, given that he's like, oh, the most powerful agent with a very powerful black trigger or something. I've never been very interested in that.
I mean, conceptually, he sort of interested me, the WMD angle, as we were reading through it, but now that we've finished the read-through, I barely think about him. Number 2, which character dynamic in this arc is your most favourite, or what dynamic has impressed you the most that you never thought would be this good? There's plenty you could pick from. As you mentioned earlier, the interplay between Teruya and Mizukami is a really entertaining subplot of that, with her starting to pick up on the fact that he was just shutting a lot of things down and being sussy, and then when he finally comes out with the reveal that he's secretly been, like, hiding what the tests were behind the scenes, and she gets really pissed off at him. It's really fun because it's got this nice balance of, you could totally see where Teruya's, like, anger is coming from, but then Mizukami has quite a sort of understandable justification for it. I really liked how that evolved, and it felt like it built to a sort of an interesting little argument that didn't feel too cliched and felt very nuanced.
Yeah, but proverbs are valuable, you know? For me, it was hands down Kikuchihara being fed up with his old party. Like, he's so done with everything. Whenever we cut to Kitazoe Squad, I'm immediately like, what's he going to say this time? I'm sorry, do you have a functional brain? So I didn't expect that the Kadera and Kitora team up was going to be so solid. Like, despite both of them being so straight-laced, it kind of works as a dynamic.
And then number 3, of all the different character arcs that are being weaved throughout the arc, which is the one that you're the most invested in? What about subplots? Thank you for keeping up the great content. You're both very fun to listen to and adorable.
What's with everyone rizzing us?
We keep getting rizzed up. I'm not complaining.
I mean, neither am I. I'm very easy, but all right. When it comes to the actual answer,
so I think it's very hard not to fixate on Wakamura Trigger. I mean, it plays into the series' strengths of being really good at slow burns, but also, like, character arcs that are very difficult to predict the full tract of, but still manage to be quite satisfying and rewarding. It's, like, a really sort of interesting thing to focus in on, like, a particular kind of flawed or mediocre agent, and how can they self-improve?
Yeah, you're quite right. In the same vein, I kind of picked Taichi. Him essentially being built up to be the big failure of the whole test, but then turning out to have some creative ideas when it comes to trans soldier modeling. That's one thing. And an interesting subplot that only comes up when we see Kido's lot is, like, Oji and Hana being groomed as future candidates for border admin. Like, it makes me wonder if at some point, like, when Osami Squad makes it to the neighborhood, we'll have a time skip where we do see these developments with like Border HQ as perhaps a more antagonistic force. And that would be like the pie in the sky for me.
It's Timothel again. Timothel, aka at Meta Nicht Knight on Twitter. How much longer will we be subjugated to pure yapping chapters? Brackets. I know the answer is until the end of the universe, but still. I mean, I'm guessing they mean subjected. But yeah, I mean, I feel like that's always going to be a big aspect of World Trigger. Like, a lot of time spent just taking points and analysing what just happened. I think the density of it will probably rescind a little during the second phase of the away mission tests when we just go into pure combat stuff, but I'm not expecting too much of it to go away. I'm sure it'll still be a pervasive element.
Yeah, I think just like you, we are nearing the end of the sealed environment phase. There's mostly homework left to do. I forget if we've reached the second day of the special battle sims or not.
I don't think we have reached the second day yet. Or day 6, rather.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I expect that depending on the chapter output, we should get to the battle phase by the end of next year, unless there's really some intense homework that needs doing, and Ashihara wants to put focus on that.
We need to do this homework. The question is how?
I mean, who knows? Might be interesting. Might be more yapping, which is always good. I don't know, Hoven. When does Blue Box get to the away mission? That's the important question, isn't it?
Indeed. Yeah.
Point being, I don't mind World Trigger being a fucking slice of life series. I think it's pretty dope.
Yeah, I think the more interesting question is, how is Ashihara going to handle when the story has to shift away from these tasks? Because you were mentioning kind of the
Promised Neverland.
Not just that, but the talking head style things being a nice, easier thing to draw than elaborate action scenes. So that's going to be an interesting bridge to cross when that's not as easy a fallback.
Yeah, we don't really have a guarantee that Ashihara's health is going to get better. So I guess we'll see what we have. And so far, I'm just happy that we have something. So I think that's all the questions. Shall we do the round-off?
Let's do it.
Okay, so that is going to do it for the 27th episode of Duckface Diaries. You can find us wherever you listen to your podcast. Just search for Duckface Diaries and we'll be there. You can find all the socials on my Linktree. That's linktr.ee/Wensleydale Cheddar. If you want us to devote more time to making the show better, consider supporting us on Patreon. In return, you can get your name in the YouTube credits and get access to some bonus content, like our massive Nuzlocke series or bonus podcasts covering Ashihara's one-shots and Superdog Relianthal that we did with Maxi Bernard from Friendship Effort Victory, or my volume recap for volumes 24 through 26 that has recently come out, or you can make me draw you a World Trigger Duckface avatar based on your lovely face. And best of all, you can help us reach more ambitious goals like doing a special podcast to cover the anime filler arc. And surprise, surprise, I'm also streaming now. I've made a VTuber model of myself as a World Trigger OC. I kind of imagined her as a lower-ranking A-rank agent who got put on an early away mission a few years ago, but as she never had much of a presence, the command forgot about her existence and she got stranded on a foreign planet nation. So now she's kind of like streaming to catch the signal of a guidance beacon back to Earth. It's very cringe. But hey, we're finally able to go through our game backlog with Spinning Asher, who's the operator in my squad. We recently managed to play some Dreamscape Liminal Spaces games like Pools and Yume Nikki. And if you want to chat some World Trigger or Pokemon with us, we're always down for that. We actually managed to get someone into World Trigger through this somehow. So head on over to twitch.tv/Brie_Cheddar. You can also find that at the very top of my link tree. Just click on the Twitch icon. Remember that much like the neighborhood, the YouTube algorithm is a dark abyss of sorrows and woes from which channels like these never surface. And what helps us navigate it is liking, subscribing, and sharing the podcast with a friend. On the same YouTube channel, you can listen to Pokemon Adventures, our retrospective where we cover the Pokemon special manga, arc by arc, along with video essayist Henry Kathman. Hoven, where can people find you?
You can find me on Blue Sky at Hoven with an H, where I occasionally post 2 manga threads. You can find me on the dreaded bird app that I'm still going to call Twitter and refer to as a bird app out of stubbornness at Hoven with an H. You can find me at youtube.com/Hoven with an H, where I have a now defunct but possibly not defunct forever series of podcasts and shitposts. And there might be something more coming in the podcast department down the pipeline. We shall see. We are discussing it.
Something might be in the works, but who knows? We shall see. We are going to be cryptic. But once again, you can find all the links to that and to everyone who has collabed with me at some point on my Linktree. That's linktr.ee/Wensleydale Cheddar. This includes all our podcasts, Patreon, all our socials, all the people who have ever been involved with the show. Send us emails, questions, comments, suggestions at wensleydale012@gmail.com, or follow us on Twitter at Duckface Diaries, or individual Twitters at Cheddar, at Hoven with an H. And yeah, you can also find us on Blue Sky now. A sincere thank you to Milo Jack Stillett for composing music for us, an orchestral rendition of Giri Giri, the first opening sequence for World Trigger, and an orchestral rendition of Ashita no Hikari, the second opening sequence. You can find his work at soundcloud.com/Milo-Jack-Stillett. Actually, it's like Milo-Jack-Stillett, but there we go. Nice that I got it right 27 episodes in.
Hey, dash.
Alright, Hoven, what are we covering next time?
Next time, we're covering volume 28 of World Trigger, so look forward to that when it comes out.
In the meantime, since I guess we're getting like one volume per year, we might cover the rest of Border Briefing File, but yeah, we'll do it as buffer episodes. In the meantime, you can expect such podcasts as Podcast Mon Adventures to come on my channel in the meantime, so go search for that. But for now, this was the 27th episode of Duckface Diaries, and as always, it's time to bugger off!